And I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Lizzie, right now. Thank you.
Thanks, Laleh. Thanks, everyone, and welcome. Today's forum is presented by the Coalition for Education and Outreach, also known as CEO. Today's event was organized by Laleh Coté, who you just met, Lisa White, who you'll hear from in a minute, and myself. The three of us are part of the CEO leadership team, which is a staff organization on campus at UC Berkeley. UCO is a community of practice and provides a space for educators, researchers, practitioners, and partners to come together and think, collaborate, discuss, and support each other's efforts related to science education and outreach. Our membership is free, and we welcome anyone who would like to join us. Most of our membership is located in the California Bay Area, but we know that some of our audience may very well extend to other areas around the country. Now I'll share a bit more about the team running today's event. Lisa, my co-moderator, is the Director of Education and Outreach for UC Museum of Paleontology. Laleh, who is running all the behind and tech of today's event, is a science education PhD candidate and chair of CEO here at UC Berkeley, and is a STEM education specialist at the Lawrence Berkeley National Laboratory. And my name is Lizzie Hager-Barnard. I'm the Director of K-12 Outreach for UC Berkeley's College of Engineering. Laleh will be adding some links into the chat if you'd like to learn more about CEO, sign up for our listserv, or engage with us in other ways. Before we get started, we have a few notes about today's event. Lisa and I will be moderating the conversation with our fantastic panelists. Laleh, as I mentioned, will be managing the technical aspects of today's event. She's an awesome tech guru and behind the scenes Zoom contributor. So please feel free to chat with her directly if you have any questions or need technical assistance. And as most of us know, there are options at the bottom of the screen to mute, unmute yourself, and raise your hand. We're looking forward to a really fun interactive Q&A session with our panelists later in the forum, and we'll be inviting people to unmute in order to ask questions. And now I'll be passing things over to Lisa.
All right, thanks, Lizzie. And it's been so great planning this with you and Laleh and everyone. Now on to the event. And today's event is called Leveraging Campus-Based Tools to Increase Access to Professional Development Opportunities and Student Support Success. So you're going to hear from a number of organizations, and we know there are many organizations across campus that do provide professional development opportunities for students, but we thought the two groups that we're featuring today offer a really special suite of opportunities that we're excited to present to you and hear from them. In order to share these resources with students, each group has developed a particular tool to do this. And so we'll discuss and they will highlight ways that the tools work in practice and how they can be used to help carry out their overall missions within their respective groups. And finally, we'll just preview today's agenda. And so generally speaking, we'll open and start with some moderated questions, and then we'll move into a Q&A with the audience. And then the last part of our session today, we'll end with some breakout room discussions where you can have some smaller one-on-one opportunities to talk with each group. And during the first part of our discussion, as we're sharing Q&A, the moderated discussion with the panelists, feel free to post questions into the chat, or we can call on you and note those questions in the chat as we proceed today. Okay, well, it's my pleasure to first introduce members of the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarship. So we have Jessica Stewart, who's the Director of the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarships. And we have Leah Carroll, who's the Haas Scholars Program Manager and also Advisor. And from Cal Nerds, we have Diana Lizarraga, and we have Chris Noble. Diana, is the Cal Nerds Executive Director, and Chris Noble is the Assistant Director for Cal Nerds. And Kseniya Usovich is the Cal Nerds Graduate Student Director, focused on data science. And Jure Andre is an undergraduate student in Cal Nerds. So welcome to all of you. Great. Okay. Well, we're going to start with the Rs team. And And so Jessica and Leah will provide 5 minutes for your team to introduce yourselves, share your vision for the work and why your organization developed your tool the first way. And I believe you'll be sharing some slides, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'll just say just a quick word. First, let me thank you, Laleh, Lizzie, and Lisa for inviting us to be a part of this discussion. And I'm really thrilled to be here alongside our wonderful colleagues at Cal Nerds. And I'll just say something quick before turning it over to Leah, just to introduce our mission. So the mission of the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarships is to more fully integrate undergraduates into the rich, diverse research landscape of Cal. And we do that in a number of ways. We do that through facilitating faculty mentorship relationships through the program URAP, the Undergraduate Research Apprenticeship Program, which serves, we get about 4,000 applicants to that program every semester for about 700 ongoing projects. And so that's just one program. And then we also have the Summer Undergraduate Research Fellowship Program, the SURF program, which offers about 100 to 150 fellowships over the summer months for students who are undertaking both independent research projects and faculty-led research projects. And it just gives them a stipend to be able to pursue their research. Then we have a suite of, and my colleague Leah Carroll, who runs the Haas Scholars Program. This is a program that serves about 20 high-achieving, low-income students every year and provides them with both summer funding and academic year funding to bring to realization a major capstone project. Then we have some experiential learning programs such as UCDC and the Stronach Prize, which facilitate research-intensive experiential learning opportunities. And then finally, I'll just mention 2 other programs, which is our scholarships office run by Alicia Hayes, who helps students connect with various research opportunities and kind of facilitates their development towards getting on track with ways to fund their research and their studies moving forward, both during their time at Cal and beyond. And then I'll also mention the Underrepresented Researchers of Color program, which is a peer-to-peer mentoring program, which is designed to demystify the research process and to help students who are systems impacted and marginalized get onto a research track during their time at Cal and to apply to research-intensive graduate programs. That being said, Leah has put together a little presentation to introduce to you some of the tools that we use to help undergraduates connect with these opportunities.
Okay, and it is actually a video rather than slides, but it's a really short video. I just thought it's kind of interactive, so I thought that would work better. Okay. Hello, I'm Leah Carroll from the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarships, and I'm going to tell you about our web resources, in particular, the research program database. And I thought the easiest way to do that would be through a video, so here we go. This is our homepage. The URL is research.berkeley.edu. And 2 things I especially want to show you on the homepage are we have this OURS mailing list, and that becomes people who sign up for this get a newsletter once every 2 weeks, or at rush times like now, once a week. And we also have this eligibility survey. It collects information on the students, and as they give us information, it says it looks like you're eligible for this program. So it's kind of an interactive sort of survey, and if there's interest, I can show that to you later. This events calendar has all the events and workshops we're giving every month. and it's connected to the campus calendar so everyone can see it. And the resources link has PowerPoints and videos from my workshops and all these other things: peer advising, advice on finding mentors, writing research proposals, human subjects protection. But mainly, I want to tell you about the research programs database. So you go to search databases, then research programs. It defaults to all programs in the database, but this includes some programs that are only for non-Berkeley students at Berkeley. So the students definitely want to filter. So you can go to programs for Berkeley students at Berkeley, press go. And then here you can filter further. Like, let's say you work with AB 540 students, you can choose citizenship status, and then look for programs that are open to AB 540 students, and it is 56 out of the total. So most programs are. And you can also filter by disciplinary division, which can be really helpful if you work just with STEM students like Diana does. And you can just scroll through and it sorts automatically by the name of the program, or you can click here and it sorts by deadline, which is very handy. Now there is also programs for Berkeley students away from Berkeley, and that has all these programs. It has nearby things that they could volunteer for during the academic year, such as a UCSF research labs where we have a lot of STEM students volunteering. Or there's also summer programs, like databases of summer programs. So this is the NSF. So this connects to the NSF database of programs, and they choose what their area is. Or we have Pathways to Science database, etc. And there are also some links that cover social science and humanities like these. And finally, we have programs for non-Berkeley students at Berkeley, which I know is of a lot of interest for CEO people. So if you don't see your program on this list and you'd like it to be there, please send me the link and we can add it. And I think that's all my time. So thank you, and I will welcome your questions during the discussion.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jessica and Leah. So now I'd like to turn it over to Diana to talk about all the awesome work that Cal Nerds is up to. Thanks, Diana.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much. So Nerds, I run 7 programs along with our team, Chris, and our student directors. In addition to that, we have a physical space, a STEM student center, which is located in Stevens Hall. And I also have another hat, and that is being the STEM Equity and Success Director for the Division of Equity and Inclusion. So the work that I'm going to share with you today about STAR, which stands for STEM Training Activities and Resources, is related to that effort that is deeply connected and rooted in Cal Nerds. And it's so great to see Laleh. She was a STEMinist student in one of our coding boot camps early on. So we're really interested in promoting tech equity in a lot of ways. And so really excited that we not only have Laleh here as a leader, but also have some of our student directors, Jure and Kseniya here to share this information with you. So with that, I'm going to share some slides. All right, so hopefully you all can see that. All right, so I'm just going to start by saying there's an intentionality in designing web tools, and being an educational technologist, I was really looking, when I was working on my dissertation, on what theories, what frameworks are out there. And when I wasn't really able to find one that really fit the needs of what I wanted to build or what I wanted to create, I ended up creating the theory of techno-inclusion. So this is the theory of techno-inclusion. And in a snapshot, it's using equity and inclusion practices via technology to create a sense of belonging, positive campus climate, and or validation to students, staff, faculty, and campus partners within an education system. But specifically, I was really interested in connecting them to activities, information, opportunities, and networks. So when we think of the vision of creating tools, I just want to put it out there that anybody, whether you're a grad student, whether you're an undergrad, whether you're a staff, or a partner or faculty, anybody can create these kind of tools, but sometimes you need a little bit of support and a framework. And so the work that I'm doing with STAR to build this web tool was intentional in using the techno-inclusive framework to do that. So let me share with you real quick. I'm going to put in the chat phase 1 of STAR so that you can see that. Phase 1 is already up, and you're welcome to go and take a look at that. And we launched it 6 months early in the fall of 2020. And we wanted a way for things to be accessible for students. It has a database in there that you can download. So all of that's phase 1. But what I'm really interested in sharing with you is what we're getting ready to launch right now, which is phase 2. So in the next few months, we'll be launching phase 2. And what we're using to bring new innovative thought to phase 2 for STAR is we're building a faculty engagement opportunity map. And so this map is really, I was problem solving about, there's outreach and dissemination in many grants. How can we connect the 150 plus STEM programs and resources that Berkeley has on campus to faculty and vice versa? And how can we do that in an easier manner? And thanks to all of our student directors, Susie, Travis, Amy in particular, we really had some thoughts around how to design phase 1 and how to launch phase 2. And so now as we're getting ready to do this, we've been working on phase 2 for over a year. We're really excited to share a snapshot. So this isn't live yet, but I wanted just to say what the vision of STAR is that faculty will be able to go on. They'll be able to select certain parameters that are interesting to them, what type of faculty engagement, what type of when during the semester or year works for them, how many hours they might have, where on campus, what geographic location might work. And in a click of a button, they'll be able to email these contacts and resources. So starting next week, we're surveying all of the programs that are listed in the database to make sure that they have information that would be helpful to them, specifically what faculty engagement opportunities they're interested in. So we can match that up on the back end. So that's just exciting code that's happening on. Another challenge that came to mind is, so to back up just slightly, I was a reentry transfer student back in the day in the 90s, and I taught myself how to code, and there wasn't really anybody that looked like me. So a lot of times I was having to find information on myself or do research projects. And I was really fortunate to get involved with the Geographic Information Systems project, studying the specific low frequency of the California state fish. Fast forward to today, I'm using GIS to help build maps so that we can have students find these programs. The students also help shape a bunch of filters. So we have 2 new filters that we'll be introducing, identities and framework. And this is just a wireframe so you can see what that's going to look like. So now you can, and we built this website specifically to be cell-centric, so that folks who are walking around campus can pull this up and literally, connect to where they're at, to where they might want to go, or what are the resources right around them. So Jeray is going to share more about that. I actually had to build an app for through our GIS to capture that geographic latitude and longitude for that. Now, once we're done with phase 2, we're going to be adding some more blogs and some more role models. We're going to be thinking about phase 3. So I've already been thinking about this heavily, but I want to build a student experience dashboard. And when you think about it, if all 150 plus programs gave one experience that they could share either in person or virtually, then we can code that on the back end so that students can find those opportunities. But not only students, administrators can find that. So not only we're thinking phase 3 a student experience dashboard that we can gamify, but also in an administrator dashboard where they can put information in there. But not only that, they can promote, participate, have some professional development opportunities for themselves. So I'll stop there. I know that was a lot, and we're looking forward to talking with everybody.
Thanks, Tiana. That was great. What a tool. I love your framework, and it's someone whose training is in geoscience. Love the way you've utilized GIS to build this tool. And the question we have, you have touched on, but I'll ask it. and if you want to elaborate, but how did you go about gathering the additional information for your target audience in order to build and customize the tool and resource? And you certainly touched on that, but if there's anything else you'd like to add about just that, the customization and any.
Yeah. Well, thanks. So I've been working at Berkeley, 19 years or so. And one of the challenges we've always seen is how do administrators connect with each other? How do they find students? How do students find programs? How can they pivot into opportunities they didn't even know that they would love, right? Which a lot for me, is data science and coding, how that can be really important. And so when I started thinking about that, I started talking with a lot of students, a lot of faculty. I did a faculty survey just to help guide me in terms of faculty engagement. I had in my mind what I thought, but I needed to kind of collect information about that. I needed to talk and look for other programs, other tools that were in existence across, really globally, but across the country to see what was out there. So this was kind of a collection of all of those resources and my passion for building websites. It's one of the ways that I helped put myself through college in the 90s. The biggest website I ever built was 750 pages, and that was too big. So when I started thinking about STAR, I started thinking, all right, and STAR right now at phase 1 is about 200 pages. So you have to think about a lot of the nomenclature, the organization of every logo, of every photo, every QR code we put in there. We have a companion PDF document. In collecting information and talking with people, what I found is that parents' information seeking practices are actually very different than students. And so parents really wanted a PDF guidebook that they could, flip through when they're at, their kids' soccer game, for example, or whatnot, that they can just look through and have a QR code that they could use to further explore what that program meant to their websites. So it wasn't necessarily me about creating something that was A to Z. It was really creating a tool to make it accessible for everybody to information seek in the way that they want, and to make this information downloadable so that they could decide how best to use it for their, if they're a caregiver, for their family, for the folks that they're taking care of.
Exactly. And with the suite of users that the tool is used for, is so important to keep in mind those design elements as well as all the back end things. Well, we have more questions for your team, so I'll hand it over to Lizzie for the next question.
Yeah, and we'll love to hear from ours too for the same question about how did you all go about gathering information from your target audience to figure out, how do you support students who are looking for undergraduate outreach, or that's what I do, outreach, undergraduate research opportunities. So Jessica or Leah, if you'd like to talk about how your team has approached things.
Well, I think Leah should mention this because she's the one that developed the database, and we do run another database, the Scholarship Connections database. I guess I'll say one thing, and I think it picks up on something that Diana was saying, or Diana. But at Berkeley, we struggle with centralization of resources, and so to collect all of that and put it into a centralized place. I think that was probably one of the underlying impetuses of the development of both the Research Opportunities database and the Scholarship Connections database. But I'll let Leah speak more granularly to the development.
So I'm in awe of the user surveys that Di has done, and the thought going into different target audiences. To be honest, the first iteration of this database was just a list of links. And I came into it when I took my job in 2001. My predecessor made the very first research.berkeley.edu website, and we had a page that just had list of links in alpha order by name of program, and they could just click on the links. And then I started saying, well, it's starting to, the number grew. Like at first it was just like 10 programs and whatever, 10 links, that's fine. But then it started to grow and grow and grow. And I started to say, we really need to make this searchable. So I think I had a link to just an Excel document that they could sort. And then eventually we went to it was connected to FileMaker on the back end for a while. And now it's Drupal. And we've just been told that Drupal is getting unplugged because it's not accessible. And guess what? We have to go back to Google Sheets. So yeah, that's kind of depressing that we're kind of back to the very low tech method. But I want to emphasize how much time goes into keeping this up to date. It's really labor intensive to run a tool like this. And so we haven't done a lot of audience surveys on what they would like the best because our capacity to deliver, it's really just me and my work study that are maintaining the thing. So in a tiny little piece of my job. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Sure, I can understand there'd be so many challenges, the ins and outs of maintaining databases like what you all are working on and what CalNerds is offering.
Can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Because I will say, in terms of collecting information from students, just because we run so many other programs, there's just an element of students always asking us, like, do you know of other research opportunities? I don't qualify for SURF LNS or SURF Rose Hills, or I don't qualify for the Haas Scholars Program or this or that. And so they're asking us constantly, can you direct me to the research opportunities that I can get? And so there's a certain amount of gathering information that happens that way. But yeah, I'm also in awe of what Di has put together for the STAR database. I would love it. I would love to aspire to do that work. And I think the Discovery might be working on helping. So we're hoping to build on whatever Discovery can develop as well, or tie into it more mindfully.
Great, thank you, Jessica. So I'll read out our second question. And for this one, I guess we can flip the order and have the Hours team go first and then CalNerds. So our second question is, in what ways do you feel that your tool or resource is meeting the needs of the intended audience? And what ways do you feel it is not yet doing so?
I give the research workshops, so I hear from students all the time. It's not as user-friendly as I would like. Sometimes they don't figure out that it's sortable, that there's filters, or they can't figure out how to use the filters. Perhaps when we move to Google Sheet, this will become more obvious to them, but that's a frustration for me. It does meet the needs in that it's quite complete. I mean, there are a few programs that are brand new and they haven't told us that they exist that get left out, but we're constantly asking people to send us more links. So, and yeah, a lot of students have found opportunities on it. I don't know.
Awesome. Yeah, no, thanks so much, Leah. I think Jure, did you want to field this one for your team?
Yes, so thank you so much for Leah for the question. And my name is Jerry Andre, but you can call me Jay. I'm a junior studying economics, and I'm also a CalNerds student director. And I would say my experience as a new student at Berkeley was quite difficult because I had a hard time finding resources. And I think every student needs a tool that can easily find resources for students. And that's why STAR exists, because STAR allows students to connect with one another, but also give the location and the picture of the student resources. And I remember that, sorry, my roommate is he's making his coffee. So if you hear it, that's fine. And I remember when I joined the scavenger hunt game hosted by CalNerds, it was difficult for me to find that student organization named Women in STEM, I think. And so, I mean, it took me 30 to 45 minutes to find that resources. And you know what? So it was 5 minutes away from Nerds. And it is strange that for a student like me, it's like hard to find a resource, one of the resources from campus, which is like 2 or 3 minutes close to me. And I think that's why we as a student and also as like academic members, no, I'm not an academic member for you, that you need a resource like a tool like Nerds, like STARS, because it will help you to find the resources that you need and give you also the picture. Thank you.
Great. So we ready for question number 3 now? Okay, so now we want to ask each of the teams, what recommendations do you have for people who might be developing a tool of their own? So for the OURS team, Jessica or Leah, want to respond to that question, recommendations to others who maybe just starting to shape.
Okay, well, I would say, think about the maintenance as well as the creation, because you're going to need to, you have to build it into your model that it needs to be maintained, especially around this time of year when there's so many deadlines. Because if you end up advertising a deadline as later than it really is, you've really done a disservice, actually. So that's one thing. I don't know what other.
That's fine. That's, yeah, one thing. It's a big thing too. But Jessica, you want to comment?
Oh, I think, well, it could go in a lot of different directions. Well, I'll just kind of surface one thing that Leah's kind of gestured to with the shift away from Drupal, because so much of the substance of our work is moving towards qualitative advising and away from building tools and resources. So I think that there's a certain level of expertise that goes into building these tools. And so just recognition of limits too, of not trying to do everything, be everybody's everything. I think we're sorting through that in terms of our capacity to meet the scale of demand and research, and also the burden of trying to be a hub for information when there isn't that centripetal activity happening. So that's probably what I would add.
Great, thank you. And for Cal Nerds, Chris, would you like to respond to the question?
Yeah.
Just what recommendations you have for folks wanting to develop tools?
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for giving me the time to discuss. So one of the unique experiences that I was able to lend into this project or this resource was my graphic design background. One of the things that I think that's really important is the branding and marketing of the resource. Creating your own brand and a logo to help your program stand out, I think, is really essential. So I was able to create the logo, and it took quite a bit of time. It's not something that happens overnight. This for us was actually a year in the making, just for the logo. It started off with an idea, and it's sort of like a recipe that you build. Some elements don't work, you rework it, and eventually it comes to a design that works out. And it's really important because the logo can convey meaning with what you're doing, affiliate with services. The logo doesn't have to do everything, but it's important. I mean, at the least it can create excitement, and it can help to make your program or resource more memorable. And I think even at one time the name had changed, if I remember correctly, Di. It was
Yeah, you should show.
Yeah, I have the actual draft. The draft start of the logo and the final output of what it looks like. Is it possible I could just share it briefly? So let me share screen. So I'm not sure if everyone can see that. So at the top is where it stands right now. And it's a simple design, but it wasn't simple in creating it. Even the draft, I think, had a great element. We ended up using the UC Berkeley branding colors and fonts. So we didn't have to make so many decision-making processes of what font to use, what color. We wanted to make it, exuberant, show diversity, show movement, and showcase the star as the main element of the design to help make it stand out. But all this took a year in the making, handwritten designs, little notes to myself, little words that might pop up to help aid in the design. And the campanile was a major fixture of the design, and we just wanted to showcase excitement, and we made it into an exclamation point. So those are some of the design elements. And I understand that not everyone has a designer in their program, but you can hire a designer. You can work with students who I also know might also provide their expertise as well to help and aid that. But I think it's helped us to create a mark for ourselves, and I think it helps to make us a little bit more identifiable than just by name itself. So.
Awesome. Thanks so much Chris for sharing.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Answering that question. And we have one more question before we're going to move into audience questions. So, audience members, you can start thinking about your awesome questions. So our last question for now is, in what ways have students benefited from this work? So Kseniya, would you like to kick us off from the Cal Nerds team?
Sure.
From you.
Thank you so much for giving me this platform. So my name is Kseniya. I'm a graduate student director at Cal Nerds. I started as an undergraduate student director years ago. And the way I joined Cal Nerds is I saw a flyer, a physical flyer, you remember those, on campus for the Intro to Python workshop. And I have been struggling with Python at that time in my class, and I decided to sign up, and the rest is history. And now that I'm teaching the Python workshops, I can share some comments from my students. So the thing is, we've been deprived, at least during the pandemic, of this opportunity of sharing the flyers and posting on campus for the students to see it. So having proper advertising, proper marketing online, and the proper place where students can go, a centralized resource where a student can go to find these opportunities was just amazing and necessary. And once again, I just want to read a few comments from the students that attend our Python workshops. And I think they speak better for the way this resource benefited them. So I'm not going to be sharing their names, but just their stories. So one of the students said, there may be hundreds of emails like mine coming to you, but I want you to pay special attention to these words. I'm a Latinx first-gen student, solo parent, transfer student, and virtual work has been a godsend in lifting my family out of poverty. I could not have acquired these skills without dedicating no-cost education like this tutoring session. Only 2% of tech jobs are filled by Latino women, and only 12% of Latino women hold degrees. Your kindness is the catalyst for change in my community, and what you permit me to learn, I in turn take it to my communities and translate these experiences to Spanish and Nahuatl. Thank you. Nahuatl, I probably mispronounced the language. I'm sorry about that. And another student said that, thank you so much for this opportunity for students like myself to learn a new skill that will help us in our futures. The skills that we learn can be applicable to many different fields, and I'm very appreciative of this opportunity. If it were not for this program, I would honestly not be able to learn this type of skill in a classroom setting. I'm a 5th year at UC Berkeley studying integrative biology and ethnic studies, hoping to go into the public health sector upon graduating. Thank you again for this. This too are like two of many comments that we receive for these workshops, and I'm happy that students were able to benefit from these workshops and were able to find this opportunity. But of course, without like proper marketing and centralized resource for this, many students would be left behind without like knowing specific people or finding specific flyers. So we're happy to have the further reach to students with these resources.
And Kseniya, let me just add, she's very modest to not say this, but when folks are coming to her workshops that are student run, we have we're doing virtual Python workshops, 100 or so students coming. So, her impact is huge. So thank you so much.
I just wanted to add that with the pandemic, we tried to do the best of it. And we moved the workshops online and opened it with the kindness of Dan and Chris. We decided to open it to many other campuses, first within the UC system and later on to other institutions as well. We started allowing community college students to come in, people from other universities as well. So that has been amazing. The reach of this resource has been amazing.
Thanks so much, Kseniya. And then Jessica, or Leah, would you like to discuss the impact that your work has on students?
You want to take it, Jessica?
I think it's just, we get a ton of traffic from students, and it's one of the only resources that is fairly comprehensive. And so, but I think the nature of it is that it directs the students outward to other resources. And so we don't necessarily have the feedback loop built in unless it's within our own programs where we offer substantive advising about, preparing research proposals for Haas scholars or for SURF or for the prestigious scholarships. And so that's typically the feedback loop that we have with the students who we're providing the advising services to. The ones that are probably the vast majority, and we know from like clicks on our websites that we get thousands of students using both the research opportunities database and the scholarship connections database, but we don't have any measures in place to kind of quantitatively measure how many of them connect to those opportunities or then secure the pursuits, the opportunities that they're pursuing. So I don't know, Leah, do you have anything you would add?
No, I think that summed it up. I do see a question about how COVID has changed the way students are using the tools. Can I take that on, or?
You can. I just wanted to broaden it just slightly. And Leah, hopefully it's okay that I'm jumping in here. But yeah, our question from the audience that I want to expand it a little bit is about how COVID-19, as far as you know, has impacted the way that students are interacting with your tools. And if you have received feedback from students about it, just how students' needs perhaps have changed, and that's why they're interacting with the Hours group and CalNerds group. So anyway, Leah, I'll let you take it back. Thanks so much.
Yeah, I would say it has radically transformed the way they interact with it. I think students are relying more on web resources and less on walking into offices. I would say the number of students walking into my office is about 1/10 of what it used to be. And so I love the idea with STAR that there's actually the GIST thing that kind of encourages them to get back into that, because that whole word of mouth, spreading the word by osmosis, that is just not happening anymore. And it's really lowering our number of applicants, to be perfectly frank. So I think, well, we do need to encourage them, like the GIST thing, to get walking around and walking in again, but we also need to have our websites be in shape and be complete and tell students what to do and what the program is about if we want them to apply.
And if I could just add, for when COVID happened, when I created the theory of techno inclusion was in 2018, finalized in 2019. And a lot of people didn't really believe, like, oh, really? And going through COVID now they're believers, right? Techno inclusion is real. But the reality is every Instagram page, every Facebook page, every Twitter account that is connected to Cal, all of our websites are agents of UC Berkeley. And they create experiences for students and users, whether they mean to or not, right? So we need to be intentional about that. We made an intentional decision to break up our different phases and launch 6 months early in August of 2020, not because I was necessarily ready, but because I was tremendously worried about new transfer students, new graduate students, new freshmen coming in and not feeling like they had access to opportunity. How are they going to get access to that? And so we were very intentional about launching it early and pushing at least the database and the other things out. So now we're in phase 2, which is great. We're building it, but we really wanted to make sure that talented grad students and undergrads could find resources. It's not for us to tell them where to go, you know, once they find the resources, but it's like, here's the buffet, you decide. And so creating tools that are techno-inclusive was really instrumental for our why of why we do it.
Can I just pick up on something that I just said? Because I think, you know, we're in the process right now of streamlining our website, and you know, I think from the student experience, a lot of our websites haven't been designed with them as the end user in mind. And so this kind of goes towards like a user interface question. And a lot of the websites across Berkeley are just rabbit holes of information. And I think OURS, we have our own kind of rabbit holes and proliferation of the same information in multiple spots. And for students, it's I know it's incredibly disorienting. And I also know from the metrics of our website that students don't spend more than 2 minutes on a website in any particular visit if they spend 2 minutes. And there's no way that a student's going to understand how to navigate and find everything that's on our websites within 2 minutes. And so I do think that the resources that we have to put to redesigning this, we're not thinking about it holistically often in terms of across divisions or across departments and how this is consistent. I mean, it's part of this siloing phenomena that I think we all struggle with, of how we're creating tools and resources for students to find the information that they want. And also, I just will echo what's already been said, but we see now in the applicants for all of our programs, students who have had almost 2 years of remote learning, and all of the informal networks and ways that they gathered information traditionally through walking around on campus and flyers. That hasn't been happening. And yet it still seems like students aren't necessarily reading their emails. And so it's this impossible way for us to know how to really access the students where they're at, engage, and know how they're getting resources. And the kind of online migration of everything during COVID has also shut all of the staff who serve students off from a knowledge of what the student experience is, like understanding and grappling with how the transfer yield events or the GBO and these traditional events where we would connect with students and help their wayfinding have collapsed in this context. And so the siloing that is Berkeley and our structure has only been amplified by the phenomena of COVID and the online migration.
That is for sure. And looking at some of the questions in the chat that are related to just that sense of wanting to support students, present them with opportunities, but not have them feel overwhelmed, you know, given the times we live in. So, Bob, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, so just this morning, we had a meeting of the group for the Discover Innovation program on campus. And this very thing came up, as everybody who are teaching right now feels that they have students that are so overwhelmed that we now see so many more existing inequities as a result of all of these things, producing students who break past the feeling of being embarrassed and ashamed to tell us how they feel and what's going on. How do you present this as something that's not something extra, that's a burden, another thing that you have to do? And before you say anything about this, I would just want to say, I'm just so stunned by the progress that you made and all the projects and how incredible these projects are and the effort that you put into them. It's revolutionary. And I want to thank every one of you for all the stuff that you've done. It's really extraordinary. And I just want to make sure I got that. But I have several other questions, but that one right now is the critical thing, because we want to direct students to these, and we really don't know how best to do it.
I'm happy to chime in, and thank you for your question, Robert. So for us, in coming up with this vision, I put myself through college building websites. I work for Hewlett Packard and customer intelligence services, right? So I like patterns. I see patterns, and I kept seeing these same patterns of students struggling and administrators struggling to find information to help them when they needed it. And so it really could never be, even though it was my vision, it could never be my own tool, right? I had to include students. I had to include grad students. We had to sit with this data. And even just looking at all the programs, intentionally, we looked at all of this data and decided to use grounded theory to make the differentiation of the themes that were emerging from these different programs. And that was extraordinary, because what it really shared with us is that originally we were just focusing on undergrad grad students, but what we really needed to also include was K through 12, right? And so by working with students with this information and making it by them and for them, we feel pretty confident it's student-centric, self-centric enough that they will be helping share this information. I think about a lot of, and one of them's here today, Brianna, EOP folks and folks from non-dominant communities who are supporting student services. How are we designing these tools so that it is easy for them to refer a student to this, and usability, works for the student. So having the student input at every single step for Chris and I was extremely important. And that's how we did it. Talking with parents, important. Talking with faculty, important. And we're always in beta. So anybody that's thinking about creating tools, I would just say, please be patient with yourself. We often don't get it right on the first try, but we will never give up trying.
So one of the things we're grappling with in the Discover Innovation program are many of the things that you've put together, and your techno innovation theory is just like amazing, I think. But the hurdles that we're facing, I think, are we all feel that there needs to be a pivot from providing discovery experiences like many of you are looking at right now, to one that is heavily supporting early on-ramp experiences for students to orient them, to heal, to get to a position where they can use your extraordinary resources. Yes, there's students that don't have this issue, that are in the know, that understand what's on campus, but there's at least half of them that we find that are not. And so in our Discover, we got one of these Discover Innovation Awards for integrated biology, our department, and that's what we were focusing on, which is developing these early courses that integrate to just put the students in a position to take advantage of all the extraordinary things that you do. And I wonder how we can best work together to make sure that a large number of students who would do these experiences really feel in a position where they can connect, that it's not an extra thing, it's not a burden, it's not something that overwhelms, it's something that actually will help them, and to recover and to heal.
I do have a slightly different response though, because I think bottom line, it is something extra. I mean, to apply to my program, they have to find a faculty sponsor and they have to write a 5-page detailed proposal. I mean, that's extra work, and it's not a course they're taking. I mean, I've managed to get applicants because I work with everyone. I have a 1-hour meeting with each applicant and to go over their proposal. And I really give them a lot of support, and I promise them that support. Like, if you produce a draft, it can be crappy, I will meet with you,
I guess I'm thinking that it physically is something extra. Of course, doing the discovery experiences that we're encouraged to do are all extra things. The difference is that I think that if they can understand that it will make them thrive and put them in a position where they feel that they can achieve and that what we find the most important thing is that they feel a sense of belonging to a community to do that, then I would call it not extra in that sense, right? It's actually ends up being essential, right? And so the question is, how is there a way we can position this to encourage students, to a large number of students who don't have this experience to connect better?
I do think just in my info sessions, just on a very practical level, I always have Haas scholars come speak about their own experience and that peer-to-peer thing, saying, yeah, it's a lot of work, but it's so worth it. It's the best thing I did at Berkeley. You know, I've gained confidence. Now I feel like a scientist. You know, they hear those words and it's like, okay. And they, you know, even if you don't get it, you're going to learn how to write a grant proposal. And then that begins to convince them. But the student-to-student outreach is really crucial, I think.
Well, yeah, I mean, the whole concept of the Discover program, we feel that is what Berkeley is. It's not the class experiences, and that's the rich nature, with the vision at some point that we have every student have a discovery portfolio, mostly doing the things that you're pointing them to, right? And have that as being the rich experience of what they gained from those interactions.
Right. Well, I'm going to jump in. Oh, sorry to interrupt, Bob.
Yeah.
To ask one of the students, Jeray, perhaps you'd like to comment and share from your perspective how it's been to just balance all the opportunities that programs like CalNerds provide with just the stress and the everyday reality, being a Berkeley student. What advice you have?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question. And it is true that as a student, it's very overwhelming. And I'm also a DSP student, so without programs such as like the EOP, DSP, because I'm also part of the EOP, my life as a student would have been more difficult. And with CalNerds, at CalNerds, we give workshop for Python, like the food pantry that gives free food to students. And what I like the most with STARS is just it is true that, for finding those resources, as I said, it was painful. But at the end, when you find that resource, it becomes easier to refine again it, because you have that tool to help you to find that resource. And so that's what I can say.
Well, that's great. And it just shows just how resourceful Cal students are. And Michael, I'm noticing that you asked a question a bit back as well. Would you like to ask it to the group about ways to sort of target?
Sure, thank you. This has been excellent, the discussion. And I was just, wondering if you actually do targeted outreach, going physically, or if that's even a thing anymore, but going to, entities, and Hope Scholars came to mind. And then I was thinking, do advisors know about these things? Maybe they do, maybe they're here in the room, or even can information about these programs get on syllabi, or maybe you are maxed out in terms of number of students. So I'm just asking questions about what kind of outreach and student fetching process goes on beyond what we've already heard.
Hi, Michael. I chime in. Your information seeking practices as a librarian, always so exciting to hear your questions. And I'm so grateful that you're here today. One of the challenges we had is that we didn't actually push it out, because right off the bat, we pushed it out to some of the immediate programs and resources supporting non-dominant and whatnot. We shared some with faculty, but we didn't make a giant push that we had planned to. One, for staffing. We had one person that was going to start with us and got a better job. But the second part is that we were on AWS. So our speed load time it took forever. And it took us months. In fact, we just rectified that now. So if you go to STAR now, you instantly are able to get on. Whereas last fall and previously, it took a long time. So now I feel like we're really ready to implement the marketing program that we designed, which is having our student leaders. We have about 20 student directors go out and share this with the various communities that are important, with all the folks in STAR, with a lot of, there's a multi-pronged strategy for that, but various communities so that they can start pivoting into this information. But we didn't right off the bat. We just targeted some, the immediate campus student groups, but not as much as we shared it with advisors because we thought that was really important. But we weren't ready because of the latency issues that we experienced. Once we moved off of AWS onto servers at Cal, it took extra money, extra time, but yeah, we're excited to move forward because that's such a good point.
Yeah, I wanted to address Michael's question, and you also put a slightly different version of it in the chat. I did do outreach to undergrad advisors, and we have this informational meeting for them every year in August. I wish I had done more with the undergrad advisors because I really think that's a crucial point of contact in getting the word out. I asked undergrad advisors to send to faculty. I said, hey, my applications are looking low. This is an amazing opportunity. And that actually got a lot of people. Targeted outreach, I also do, like with underground scholars, we have this amazing pipeline happening into undergraduate research. And Hope Scholars, I've done presentations, but fewer people are coming to my workshops. Like my participation has really, really dropped in those. And I do have videos online, but I don't know how to rectify that. I mean, I publicize them on our newsletter, which goes to thousands of people, but somehow the initiative taking thing has really dropped off because of the not wanting to do extra stuff, I think.
Well, we have time for a couple more questions. And Robert, I see you have your hand up.
Yeah, so one suggestion is with the wonderful response from the student is, it would be great if you could make, for all of these different programs, little short video clips of sort of ambassadors explaining how, just what you said about how this is enriching and it's not an extra burden and it's almost essential that you could do this. And I think that would go a long way if we could direct students who feel that way, because I teach a 200 student course now, and many of the students are freshmen, sophomores, and they feel that way. If I could direct them to a whole series in all the different programs we have of people saying, hey, I felt like you did, but this really helped, amazingly, that would go a long way. And the second thing I would do is, I am certain the faculty don't know about this. You need the faculty to connect if you really want to do these experiences, to connect with the students, especially if you're going to, specifically undergraduate research. Please get someone, I'm sorry that you're so resource limited and don't have enough people, but please get someone to give a short presentation on these in faculty meetings and just shoot through the departments. And I think it'll make an enormous difference because faculty don't know about these things, and they will be stunned like I am if you give this presentation with all the stuff that you have. They ask about this all the time, but again, we're equally overwhelmed given the fact that people we're trying to deal with the pandemic. We've created a whole new version of our course for the pandemic. Now we have a whole new version of our course with transitions. So I created this lab that's going right now to be total high flex, like seriously high flex, even though it's a hands-on design lab. Enormous amount of time to do this, huge effort to then, think that somehow I have to understand and coordinate with all these programs. It's really hard. So I would recommend, and you're certainly welcome to come to one of our faculty meetings, do this presentation, and I think it'll make a huge difference. That's my recommendation. And again, thank you for the stuff that you're doing. It's just mind-blowing, to be honest with you.
And I'll say we reached out to Dean Botchin because we weren't getting a lot of faculty responses for the faculty engagement survey. And that was really helpful. Once you have some of the deans sharing that with their faculty and their community, you want that. And so
I'd be glad to ask them, because we're talking about them.
No, we already did that.
But I can encourage them to do it. But again, a survey, I just don't think that's going to do it. I would say you jump into the faculty meeting when the people are there. It doesn't have to be in person, you know, most of them are virtual. And you put this thing out and you have it recorded for every faculty member to see. I think it would make an impact.
Great.
That's my guess.
Jay, we'd love for you to comment.
Yeah, thank you so much for that comment. I mean, what I like with what you said is just like, because I mean, for example, for me to find like CalNerds, EOP and DSP, I did it by myself. So like, I had no idea that those resources existed. And like, I made like, it was painful for me, like to make research, you know, how to get involved, especially with DSP to get those accommodations. And with CalNerds, I think I was lucky enough because I received that email from like Taco Tuesday. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I will try to see where it is. And even to find CalNerds, it was painful because like it is between like two buildings and to go inside, you know, it's not always easy. And with our team, I think we are already doing like a good job, you know, to share the news with like our Instagram page and those emails that we receive from, you know, on Gmail, because without those emails, I would not have been able to learn about like CalNerds. And yeah, thank you so much for like giving us that suggestion to make like a video to explain how we can use those tools.
Well, it's been great, and we've appreciated this Q&A. We'll take one last question before we pose a final question to both groups. We'll do breakouts, but Teresa Barnett from Community Resources for Science, we'd love for you to ask your question about how community organizations can engage.
Yeah, thanks, Lisa. And sorry, I joined late, so you may have covered it, but as an off-campus nonprofit who partners with lots of grad students on campus and over the years, undergrads in different ways, sometimes it's not clear for us how to engage. We might have opportunities if an undergrad wanted to create a research project or a community engagement project. How could we better connect and make sure they might know that we're a resource as they are trying to envision. We work in the education space, science education, but I'm sure there's lots of people working in lots of different community impact spaces. Just, are there some thoughts you have about ways that we could engage and better and support students who have a vision to do some of this work?
I mean, certainly I do have, there's a page on our, in our database called Opportunities for Berkeley Students Away from Berkeley. And if you have research opportunities off campus, we could put you in that database and you'd be a little bit more findable. So I'll put my email again.
Thank you for the question. I will say when we designed the website, when we designed STAR, one of the challenges was originally I really wanted to build it for all majors on campus. But I realized, you know, I didn't get any funding to build this tool. I had to fundraise every dollar to build this tool on my own with the help of UDAR and the College of Engineering. And so I had to limit my scope. And so I started with STEM. I wanted to put other resources out there, especially non-Berkeley ones, but I just had a limited capacity. So one of the ways in which you can directly connect, I put it in the chat, is go to that link that I just put in the chat, Teresa, because you can download any of the programs that you want into a CSV file, convert it into an Excel file, and email all of those communities yourself. We wanted to make it accessible so that you had the power to use that information, you know, however you would like to do. So that is one way that you can do that now, because we do want that information, you know, information sharing. We believe in the theory of weak ties, you know, that's really important for innovation and creation. And so I'll stop there, but, you know, I'm also happy to talk to you further. Feel free to connect with me.
Thanks.
And Jessica, did you want to add anything else from your team? Any closing thoughts or anything?
Oh, well, I kind of had wanted to go back to what
Please.
Professor Full was talking about, because I do think it points to larger issues that are, I know our new executive dean, Jenna Johnson-Hanks, is trying to grapple with across LNS more broadly. We know within the Office of Undergraduate Research and Scholarships that our programs largely serve juniors and seniors. And so the question of how we know that, for example, from pulse surveys, that freshmen and sophomores, they're very, very eager to enter into research opportunities, but they don't know how to get onto that pathway. And there's a disconnect between the kinds of experiences that they might be having in their classrooms around the skills that they're building that allow them to prepare for research, and they don't see those experiences as the same. And so I think there are a lot of conversations happening about bringing research experiences more thoughtfully into the first and second year experiences, and creating kind of an arc of stages that are more rational to students about the opportunities that intersect. I know the Major Maps project was part of this, but it points to a larger phenomenon of, OURS, we offer co-curricular research opportunities that are intended to build off of things that are happening in the classroom. And we do need to have more robust relationships with faculty, and to have more robust engagement too with students as co-creators and creating the research opportunities that they want to have. So within the kind of margin to act that we have. So I think that there's going to be a lot happening within the next few years. I know I've talked to my deans about going across LNS to different department to department to make sure that faculty know about the programs that we have, and that the students can see themselves in those programs. And if there are small tweaks that we can make in terms of making the programs more responsive to both faculty vision and initiatives and student need, then we can start to get onto that pathway. But it's like a very dynamic and complicated series of problems. So, but.
And I'll just add that for me, as an undergraduate who was a waitress for 9 years, I was a very non-traditional path. I did 4 undergraduate research projects, and it was undergraduate research that changed my life. I started in laboratory information services, went on to animal genetics, went on to reproductive biology at the Primate Center, and then went on to STEM education. And I really had to have people around me, faculty, advisors, administrators, grad students, undergrads, that were validating my belief that maybe I could try something different and change my life. So all of us are validating agents. That's really important. But we also have to come to the mantra of they have to accept somebody. Why not me? Right? Because when you're fighting imposter syndrome on top of everything else, from being a non-dominant BIPOC, student, it's overwhelming. So we just have to continually be validating to all of those communities and appreciating everybody who is doing this work, because it takes a village to make sure they understand that they deserve these opportunities and that they would be welcome to so many communities. And also, Robert, I'm going to follow up with you when we're ready for our beta for our faculty engagement tool, just to get your insight on the usability of it, right? So having talks like this is really important for all of us, so that we can make new connections and improve our tools to make them even better. But it's always on the back of our mind how we can continue to amplify the work that we're doing and help more students and partner with each other, so that no one group is lifting everything by themselves.
Awesome. Well, Deanna, I love your comment about it takes a village. I love that. I hope everyone here will go out and help spread the word about these amazing resources. Let your colleagues know that this video is going to be recorded and up on YouTube if they missed it. And on behalf of Lisa, Laleh, and myself, we really like to thank all of our fantastic panelists, and to thank the audience for asking such great questions, and to give everyone the opportunity to interact more directly with our panelists. We'll be moving into breakout rooms, which will last about 10 minutes until 1:30. Laleh has kindly organized the breakout rooms for us, and you should have the option to select which one you'd like to enter. If you can't enter the breakout rooms yourselves, you can send us a note in the chat. If you have any problems or want to switch breakout rooms, you can come back into the main room. We'll be here. And if we don't see you again after the breakout room discussions, thank you so much again for joining our event, and we hope to see you at a future CEO event. Thank you.